Hey guys, hope you're all doing good. It's me, Bo, back on the Film Scene Investigation channel with another film review. In today's video, I'm going to be taking a look at the 1984 romantic thriller, Against All Odds. Now, I first came across this film many years ago when I was delving into Phil Collins's greatest hits. I was, getting into music at the time, and Phil Collins, I had, seen some of his music videos, and one of them in particular was Against All Odds. I think I was watching it on VH1 Classic or something, and in this video there was footage of the movie spliced in with it. I remember I noticed Jeff Bridges in the footage, and later found out that this movie was or had the same name as the song. So that was my first kind of introduction to Against All Odds. And eventually, probably about maybe 3 or 4 years later, I finally sat down to watch it for the first time. So, Against All Odds from 1984 was directed by the filmmaker Taylor Hackford and was based on the novel Build My Gallows High from 1946. This 1984 version was produced for around about $13 million, but went on to make over $20 million at the box office and even garnered an Oscar nomination for Best Original Song. When it comes to the narrative, the movie focused on the central character Terry Brogan, who was played by actor Jeff Bridges, an injured football player who had just been cut from his team. He wanted to continue playing and, have a full-length career, but unfortunately, his injuries were too severe for him to carry on. Terry was obviously a very dedicated player. He loved his profession and wanted to, still be involved with the game. But even his peers were suggesting that he basically quit and, save his body from any further injury. With no future prospects, no future career path, Terry was down on his luck. He thought that was pretty much it. His life was over. And then he met his friend, Jake, who was played by actor James Woods. And Jake had a proposition for Terry. You see, Jake needed someone to go find his ex-girlfriend, Jessie Weiler, who had stolen money from him. Basically, she had outsmarted him, she had ran off with his money, and Jake wanted it back. Terry was confused by the proposition, but considering he could no longer earn money playing football, Jake's offer of $30,000 up front seemed very tempting. All Terry had to do was get on a plane and travel over to Mexico and pick Jessie up. Jake made it sound so simple, but of course, the situation was a lot more complicated, as Jessie was the daughter of Mrs. Weiler, the owner of the football team that Terry used to play for. You see, if he got involved, things could get messy and potentially backfire on him. So of course, Terry was very hesitant to accept Jake's offer. Since Terry still felt very apprehensive, he decided to meet Mrs. Weiler one-on-one, face-to-face, so they could discuss his future at the football club. Terry actually used the opportunity to plead his case and try and convince Mrs. Weiler to get him back on the team, but she outright refused. Since there was no way of Terry getting back on the team, he begrudgingly accepted Jake's offer and got on a plane and travelled to an island off of Mexico. You see, in his eyes, if Mrs. Weiler wasn't going to help him in his career, then, Terry was going to go and help himself by finding her daughter. Once he arrived on the island, it didn't take long for Terry to find Jessie, who was played by actress Rachel Ward. Initially, she gave him the cold shoulder. He was a stranger after all. And even though he tried to, play it cool, she, wasn't interested. I think given the circumstances in which Jessie left Los Angeles with Jake's money, basically, stealing it from him and then running away, Of course, she was a little worried about the potential repercussions. As the days followed, Jessie realized that Terry wasn't a threat and that, she could trust him, and so the two became close. Eventually, the two began this passionate love affair, all the while Jake was waiting back in Los Angeles for updates. Terry had taken Jake's money. He had accepted the offer and was given clear instructions to go and get Jessie, but suddenly he fell head over heels, he fell in love, and well, there was no going back for him. It was also quite clear that Jessie was pretty happy on the island. I mean, she had this nice setup, she had Jake's money, she didn't want to leave, and of course, Terry wasn't going to leave without her, so the two ended up staying for weeks on the island without letting Jake know. It was like, forget about that guy, let's just go and have this passionate love affair and just live happily ever after. But as you can imagine, back in LA, Jake was getting more and more angry after not receiving any updates from Terry. He had given this money over, he thought he could trust his friend, and suddenly he'd been ghosted. This all led to Terry's friend, Hank Sully, showing up on the island, ready to take Jessie back to LA. You see, Jake had become too suspicious about what was going on and wanted answers, so he decided to send Hank to do his dirty work. So, the couple were found and held at gunpoint, with Hank telling Jessie she needed to return ASAP back with him to Los Angeles. Of course, she didn't want to go, and there was no way that Terry was going to just allow that to happen. As you can imagine, tensions flared, and eventually Terry and Hank got into a fist fight. Terry tried his best to fight back, but Hank got the better of him and was about to kill him when suddenly Jessie picked up Hank's gun and shot him dead. Jessie, of course, didn't mean to kill Hank. I mean, it all happened so quickly. She just wanted the two to stop fighting, and so she picked up the gun, and next thing you know, she pulled the trigger. Hank was dead, she was a murderer, and that was a burden that was just too big for her to accept. So, in a surprising move, Jessie ended up leaving the island and actually travelled back to Los Angeles to be with Jake. You see, Jake could give her an alibi if the authorities started asking questions about the whereabouts of Hank Sully. Jessie certainly did not want to go to prison. I mean, she wasn't a murderer, she didn't mean to do it, but it happened and, well, she was going to have to face some prison time unless Jake could vouch for her. Now, this movie had one of those unique end sequences where the final scene blends into the end credits. You had Jessie standing there looking at Terry, Terry looking at her, the two lovers that wanted to be with each other but they couldn't be, and the Phil Collins song Against All Odds playing out. It was this bittersweet moment, and what made it work was the combination of not just the brilliant song by Phil Collins, but also the beauty of Rachel Ward. Blending all of that together made for a very romanticized ending with all the sensibilities of the 1980s. I loved it, and I thought it was a brilliant decision, for the camera to linger on Rachel Ward's character as the credits rolled. I mean, to me, it was far more impactful than to just fade to black. Now, one thing I wanted to mention was the film's overall look and aesthetic. There can be no denying that Against All Odds was a very well-made production that had some beautiful visuals throughout from cinematographer Donald E. Thorin. From the sun-drenched beaches to the mystical island ruins, I mean, all of that, it was all there on show for the audience to absorb. Also, shooting on location in Mexico, that's not cheap. That would have cost some money. So it was good to see that the filmmakers fully utilised their surroundings. Now, while I really appreciated the overall style of the film, I must say, it really did remind me of the 1984 television show Miami Vice, with the vibrant colours and the exotic locations. There were a number of similarities that I noticed when I was watching Against All Odds. What I find most interesting is that Against All Odds predates Miami Vice. I mean, the movie was filmed 1 year earlier in 1983 and was released before September of '84 when the show debuted. Now, clearly, the executive producer, Michael Mann, who was behind Miami Vice, it was obvious he took a lot of inspiration from the movie Scarface. But having seen the full 5 seasons of the show and then watching Against All Odds, I think it's quite plausible that Michael Mann took some influence and some ideas from this movie. I mean, for example, we saw this car race between Terry and Jake. They were both racing these sports cars, and honestly, looking at some of the camera angles, the close-ups of the bumpers, the wide shots of the cars zooming past, it was all very reminiscent of the car chases that we saw in the early seasons of Miami Vice. It's just something that I wanted to bring up, something that I noticed, because when I've read up on Miami Vice and the history surrounding the show, I mean, Scarface, the movie Al Pacino, that often gets cited as a major influence, but Against All Odds doesn't. And to me it's quite baffling because there's clear comparisons of the two. As for the performances, I thought Jeff Bridges was great in the leading role, playing Terry Brogan, the down-and-out football player. Bridges brought his natural charm and likability to the screen that made his character, Terry, quite endearing. When I think back at some of the character's decisions, Terry certainly wasn't, the smartest guy. I mean, running away with, $30,000 in your pocket and thinking that there would be no repercussions. I mean, that's pretty stupid. But with the power of Jeff Bridges' performance, you still was able to feel some sympathy for the character, even when he made stupid decisions. Actor James Woods did a decent job playing the dubious antagonist, Jake Wise. Now, his character was this slimy nightclub owner who was selfish and thought he could control people by using his money. But when it came to Jesse, well, that backfired on him. Now, this movie ran for well over 2 hours, and James Woods, had a pretty limited amount of screen time. So all things considered, he actually did quite an impressive job playing the bad guy and making the most of his screen time. As for actress Rachel Ward, well, she was fantastic in the role as Jessie Weiler, and for me, the perfect casting choice. Her character was this seductive femme fatale who was guarded by privilege and was even willing to sacrifice her own happiness in order to avoid prison. Now, there's no denying that back in the day, Rachel Ward was a very attractive woman, but specifically singling out her performance and her role in this movie, I have to say that at times Ward was mesmerizing. I mean, whenever she was on screen, you couldn't really take your eyes off her. I mean, she was that captivating. And that leads me on to one of the other aspects that I really enjoyed about this movie, and that was the chemistry between Rachel Ward and Jeff Bridges. The two had this natural back and forth chemistry. It didn't feel forced. And it was also believable that someone like Terry, in his position, in his situation, would indeed fall head over heels for Jesse. And of course, with the romance comes the love scenes. And when I was watching these love scenes play out, I did think about Rachel Ward's husband, Brian Brown. So Rachel Ward and the actor Brian Brown, they got married in 1983, the same year that Against All Odds was filmed. And I don't know, it just popped into my head, this thing of like, man, I wonder what Brian Brown must have felt, watching this movie and seeing his wife, simulate sex scenes with, this Hollywood heartthrobbing Jeff Bridges. Maybe I'm just a little bit old school, but I think I would feel a little bit, or find it a little bit difficult to accept, my wife simulating sex scenes, in such a provocative way. But I guess that, comes with the territory of, marrying an actress. I'm sure Rachel Ward told, Brian Brown ahead of time, if we marry, you're not going to change my career path. I want to be an actress, and that comes with the territory. So he had to accept it, I guess. And, he's also, done romantic films and, got naked on screen and stuff like that with women. So it is what it is. But just watching Against All Odds, for the first time in many years, seeing this very, provocative, passionate, love scene between Jeff Bridges and Rachel Ward, it made me think, man, it must have been pretty difficult for Brian Brown to watch this. And so, dislikes for Against All Odds from 1984. My biggest dislike for the film would have to be its overall length, as for me, there could have been at least 10 to 15 minutes of footage that could have easily have been removed. This was a good film, and I do recommend it, but I think it could have been a great film if it was a tighter edit. Now, this wasn't a big deal, it's not a major factor. It didn't really ruin my overall viewing experience, but there was just a lot of filler, stuff that didn't really go anywhere. And, for example, the sequence inside Jake's nightclub, we saw this musical performance with these dancers and this singer in a hat. And for, a couple of minutes, the film just kind of, just focused on this band playing this music act. And it just felt unnecessary. I mean, if something was going to happen on stage, then I get it, build it up, make tension, but just to cut to this random musical performance, I don't know, just didn't work for me. And obviously this was a, big Hollywood production, so I wouldn't be surprised if the studio had given some notes and said, they requested a certain length, a certain runtime. But either way, there was just at times a lot of filler, and I wish that it had been edited down, and maybe condensed for a much quicker, tighter pace. And so, ratings for Against All Odds from 1984. I'm going to be rating this movie a solid 5.5 out of 10. Against All Odds was your quintessential 80s noir romantic thriller that starred Jeff Bridges and Rachel Ward entangled in this forbidden love affair. As mentioned earlier, their chemistry they had together, it was a key element, a major highlight that brought a lot of intrigue to the story. What I find most fascinating is the film's title theme, written and performed by Phil Collins, Against All Odds, the song itself. That had some major success, and in actual fact, it's actually overshadowed the movie. I mean, when people think about Against All Odds, they would immediately think of the song before they would think of the film. It was a power ballad. It's a real classic. I mean, I've heard it ever since I was a kid on the radio. And it was Phil Collins' first US number one. It earned him a Grammy. It got him an Oscar nomination. So, more people know about the song than the movie itself. If you've seen Against All Odds, then please let me know your thoughts and memories in the comment section below. For those out there who haven't seen it, or for those who haven't seen this one, in some time, I would definitely recommend it. If you're a fan of 80s cinema, then absolutely, you'll definitely get a kick out of this. But more specifically, if you're a fan of the show Miami Vice, as I am, then I think you'll not just notice the comparisons and the similarities, but you'll appreciate them too. So yeah, if you're a fan, go definitely check this one out. And well, that is all from me today, guys. I do hope you've enjoyed this review of Against All Odds from 1984. I'll be back next week with yet another cult movie review. If you like what I do here, guys, please consider subscribing to the channel. And of course, take care.